Ms. Cross?
It sounds like it's a deliberate choice for Mr. Morrison not to be present this morning, and the defendant was certainly here yesterday if he joins later. Otherwise, I think we could call that a voluntary waiver.
Okay, I agree, and I haven't heard anything else from Mr. Morrison or any other counsel. Is there anything we need to take up before resuming testimony here? Let me start with the state.
I'm sorry, thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday, the state had asked that Ms. Yurdi be, her subpoena be held in case we needed to recall. I let her attorney know last night after speaking. We don't intend to recall her, and as far as the state's concerned, I know she'd already been released from the subpoena from the other side, so there was no reason for her to be today from the state's concerned.
All right, Ms. Merchant, can we excuse Ms. Yurdi?
I talked to her attorney last night, and I said we had a different conversation, so I think she's still on standby.
So your position has changed since yesterday?
Well, based on the state's representation that they may have rebuttal evidence, but they didn't give us that, so I don't know what that is. So in rebuttal, if they present something in rebuttal that I need to call her to talk about, then I will.
All right, we'll address it as it comes up. What else? Anything else, Ms. Cross?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Merchant?
I know that we're still in the middle of Ms. Willis, but we need to address some of the things that were said yesterday in court in regards to Mr. Bradley's privilege, things like that. Do you want to do that now, or would you rather do that before Mr. Bradley?
When you say address them, what do you mean?
Well, there's a couple different issues, but we've got the privilege issue is one of them. But I also, what I did was I drafted all my questions, and I thought I could give those to you in the court because the counsel everyone could review them, so we didn't have to worry about the privilege stuff. There were some allegations made. I had a transcript made of the proceeding yesterday. Some specific allegations that I think I should have an opportunity to refute. Specifically that I had egregiously misrepresented, that things that I had said were patently false, and that all of that information included from Mr. Abadi, speaking of Mr. Chopra. I spoke with Mr. Chopra. We talked to him in the car on the way here on speakerphone, Mr. Merchant and I. And he said that he didn't tell Mr. Abadi any of that information, doesn't know where Mr. Abadi got it from. Mr. Abadi says that he did. So, you know.
If there's any clearing of the air that needs to happen, and if we need to get to that, I think the right time would be once we've actually seen all the evidence that comes out. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to let the court know. Thank you.
And in terms of the privilege issue, if you're planning to recall Mr. Bradley, and you've actually typed out some specific questions, then yes, I think that would be helpful and might allow things to proceed a little more efficiently through his testimony. So to the extent you've got those typed out and are willing to provide those to counsel for Mr. Bradley and the state, I'd encourage you to do that. And before we call him, we can get into that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And I have a copy for the court. I have one copy for either Mr. Evans. I know Mr. Abadi was objecting to privilege yesterday, but I think it's actually Mr. Evans that needs to be.
Was Mr. Evans is here? Okay. All right. Anything else from any counsel?
We'll make sure it's still in place.
Rule is still in place. All right. Not seeing anything else. If we could bring back in Ms. Willis.
Actually, Your Honor, the state has no further questions for Ms. Willis, so.
All right.
I'm ready to recall.
Okay, Ms. Merchant. Next witness.
I think we're about to hit the privilege issue.
We are about to hit the privilege
There we are. Okay. Then do you need counsel need a moment to take a look at her questions?
Yes. So I've got a copy. Oh, I guess Mr. Evans.
And then do we have Mr. Bradley somewhere in the whereabouts nearby?
Mr. Chopra. I informed Mr. Chopra that he's still under subpoena. So
Well, him and his client.
Yes. I'm also with Mr. Bradley. He's actually not here today.
We need you to identify yourself for the record, sir.
Nate Van Ward. He's not here at this moment. He has a doctor's appointment that he's currently in as we speak. And his representation is on the way here as well. I'd love to be able to get one of the.
Do you have a copy of that?
I just want Mr. Evans.
Do you have a time estimate of when he's supposed to be here?
I have one copy right now. Of the questions?
Where's the doctor in relation to here?
Yes, at the very earliest, he would be free about 10 o'clock, 10 to 10:30.
All right, he's currently driving here as we speak.
He's at the actual doctor's office as we speak.
Okay. And
I think the
All right.
I wasn't until 10 or 10:30, but.
Sure. Ms. Merchant, other than Mr. Bradley, did you have any other witnesses?
Not that I can call before Mr. Brown.
But I do think we can take up some of the privilege
Sure.
questions.
No, I think we can use this time to do that. So why don't y'all take a moment to look at the questions and then let me know when you're ready to proceed.
My part of it doesn't have to do with the question. I understood yesterday, I know these gentlemen are looking at the same time, so you want me to wait until they've had a chance to.
Well, I think you're about to maybe make a legal qualification here, so why don't we hear what you got?
All right. Yesterday, it sounded as if the witness was going to decline to answer any questions at all in relation to communications or observations or anything, be it independent source or otherwise, that took place during the time of the alleged attorney-client privilege relationship, which is 2015, I think, until the present. I understood that as referencing not simply attorney-client privilege communications, but what we commonly refer to under 1.6 as confidences and secrets, which are not covered by the attorney-client privilege and are not barred from testimony or evidence in a courtroom. But it sounded as if the court is going to have to order Mr. Bradley to testify, and then Mr. Bradley will have to take a position of whether he's going to follow the court's order, heed the court's order, or whether he's not. If he does, then we'll be able to get in hopefully to the questions that Ms. Merchant has prepared on Mr. Roman's behalf. If he says, I'm not going to comply, then theoretically we're in a position in which the court will have to hold him in contempt. And then, at that point, my guess would be that somebody would say, I would like him to have the contempt stayed while I take it up on appeal. So I'm just trying to play through where we're going to be. Because if we're going to do that, we might as well know this before we start putting him on the stand.
I think that's a good thing to flag now, and I agree that yesterday during the hearing there was some intermingling of 1.6 and attorney-client privilege, and now having had the time to kind of parse through that, and it does seem that there is a distinction between the two. One is not covered by the evidentiary privilege, and pulling the case of Tenet Healthcare Corp., 273 Georgia 206. Supreme Court doesn't make that distinction. So to that end, Mr. Evans, as we work through these issues, I would say that when Mr. Bradley takes the stand, I would be directing him to respond and be responsive to any questioning that may be covered by Rule 1.6. That would be the order of this court. But that still reserves the issue of attorney-client privilege. So as you're reviewing those questions, we'll keep that in mind, and I'll be interested to hear your response. Anything else you think we should clarify before we take a break to look at the questions? Do you have a copy for me?
Yes, I do. A copy of the questions, Judge, and I also have copies of there's the exhibit that I would be filing. Would you like that as well? I just took those.
So I have objections to filing. You say you want to file it?
No, that I'm going to use in Mr. Bradley's testimony. I think it will help, but we can wait and I can use it after it's strict question that I gave Mr. Bradley.
All right. And counsel for Mr. Bradley, I'm sorry, can I get your name one more time? I didn't write it down.
Maybe I would.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ward, if we could get some regular updates of where he is and how he is progressing towards the courtroom. And then when everyone has had a chance to read these questions in the interim, let me know and we can take this up. Mr. McDougall.
I have a text message from one of Mr. Floyd's lawyers that he's logged in on the Zoom conference, Your Honor.
Okay. Is someone joining us by... Thank you. Is someone joining us by Zoom that wants to appear for the record?
Yes, Your Honor. Chris Kucheroff for Mr. Floyd.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kucheroff. And I think we had a legal assistant here announcing on Mr. Floyd's behalf, but I think it would be better to have counsel of record any announcement in terms of Mr. Floyd's presence this afternoon, or excuse me, today.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I don't know. Did you ask a question?
Yes, sir. So Mr. Floyd joined us yesterday, but I do not see him here today. Do you have an announcement about his presence for today's hearing?
No, he will not be present, Your Honor.
All right.
We would waive his presence.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. All right. We'll be in recess until I hear from the parties.
Thank you.
to potentially move on to other witnesses. Why don't we start with Ms. Stagg? Ms. Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, in
Why don't we start with Ms. Stagg? Ms. Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, in order to be.
I don't know why we can't call him to establish the fact that's already been established. We're not refuting that fact. Keep on that fact.
Ms. Cross, I think did she say it was her first choice? Did she not say who was her first choice?
I think that's. I don't believe that.
Position over, and Ms. Cross, I'd like to call your witness.
Thank you. The state would call Governor Roy Barnes.
And Judge, just so I'm clear, so you had told us not to ask the
Or anything other than what my understanding of what the testimony was.
As I hear it, the issue of qualifications versus who was her first choice is going to. Ms. Cross, assuming this may be a 10 to 15 minute witness, does the state have other witnesses on deck that they'd like to go forward with as well?
Yes, we called to gather everyone we could, so we can go forward with another witness, I believe, after this one.
All right, appreciate it. I do.
Roy Eugene Barnes, Royeugene, Barnes, Barnes.
In public service.
I was first elected to the state senate in 1974 from Cobb County, and I served 16 years there. And then in 1990, I ran for governor and was defeated. And 2 years later, I went back to the House of Representatives. I was elected to the House of Representatives and served 6 years until I was elected governor in 1998, and I served in that position until January of 2003.
And after serving in the position of governor, can you tell the court?
I was elected. I went back to practicing law in Marietta, Georgia, with my daughter, who's now judge of the state court, and my son-in-law. And now
And I want to direct your attention back to 2021, where you were approached by the district attorney of Fulton County, Fani Willis, about being a special prosecutor.
I was. I don't recall the exact date, but I know it was sometime in 2021. And she asked me to come down, and I met with her and Nathan. There were several other in the meeting. She asked me, said they were beginning this investigation, and she asked me if I'd be interested in being special prosecutor, to which I replied that I had mouths to feed at a law office, and that I would not do that. And also, I just had a bad, well, I won't say bad because it happens from time to time, but I just had FBI to report making threats against me, and because I thought it was because of the flag, but I asked him, and he said no, it was because I was too close to the Jews, quote unquote, and I told.
Ultimately, you turned down.
Yes, yeah, I told her. I said I'm not interested.
Nothing further from the state.
Ms. Merchant. Ms.
Morning,
Merchant.
Governor Barnes. How are
Morning.
you?
Just fine. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You said it was sometime in 20.
At the office, but I don't have that.
Well, I want to ask you about some statements that Ms. Willis made March 28th, 2021. She was talking about assembling a team for this case. Are you familiar with her work assembling a team for this case?
Well, I assume that's what she was talking to me about. I exchanged pleasantries with him, but the conversation was with me. Besides that, I exchanged pleasantries with him, but the conversation was with Ms. Willis.
Okay, with Ms. Willis. Were you aware at the time that her team consisted of Brian Watkins, Megan Vargas, Sonia Allen, Shannon Trotty, Sal Chan, and John Floyd? She had reported that was her team on this case.
I don't remember what case I tried last year, much less every word that was said in the conversation.
I understand, fair enough. But she said she was looking to hire.
Testify to is what she told me.
Did she tell you at all why she wanted to hire special counsel and not use someone who? Would you agree that an employee of her office, someone who was paid a state salary or a county salary as an ADA, could handle a case like this?
You're well.
I'm doing fine, just getting older, but that beats all.
That's true, but that applies to all of us, I believe.
Yes.
I think you indicated that if you had your calendar, you'd be able to pinpoint a date for us.
I would.
Is there a way for you, for example, at a break before you actually leave, to contact your folks to see if you can get a date?
I guess I could.
Would you be willing to give that a shot for us?
I mean, I'll do whatever the court instructs.
So if I ask the court and the court says go ahead and you could do it, that's all right?
I'll do whatever the court instructs.
I hear you. If I pinpoint a date, for example, I think the record is clear that Mr. Wade was hired for the position on November, or the adjoining building.
It was in the Lewis Slate building.
And District Attorney Willis was there, obviously, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Wade was there? Did all the talking. Mr. Wade did not.
I mean, we exchanged pleasantries, but as far as the basis of the conversation, the reason I was there, Ellen and I have done some white collar cases over, and I have done some white collar cases over in federal court, and I've got one over there. Right, I've handled some pretty good cases. I sued Syria one time for beheading a client of mine. Actions, business torts, breach of contract, and most of those are complex, requiring many experts. We also do malpractice. I did malpractice defense for about 25 years, but since I've returned from the governor's office, I try not to represent an insurance company anymore, and I just try of medical knowledge and medical knowledge and that you have to have, and also because of the many experts that you have.
Thank you. Based on circumstances in which you were given the offer that it had to do with the fact that you had handled complex and high-profile cases.
He's a very qualified young man.
After that one occasion, did you have any other contact with her in reference to the position itself, or have any other contact with her in reference to the position itself? Conversations with her?
Yeah.
No, right?
Yeah. Nathan was there, I thought. Now, I could be mistaken, but I thought Nathan was there when I
For,
Was there when I?
for the
I
conference.
think Nathan was I one. I mean, Nathan is a good organizer. You know, Nathan can organize. Nathan can organize stuff. I've watched him over the years. So
Is he in media? Does that sound familiar?
he has done media in the
Media? Does that sound familiar?
he has done media in the past. Jeff has generally been. I like Jeff. I think Mr. DeSantis was too. And Mr. DeSantis was too.
And as far as whether there was anyone else there, you don't have a present recollection.
Next time I'll take a picture so I'll have an exact.
To you on the record that I can understand why they came to see you because you're the finest lawyer that I've ever worked with.
Thank you. I need to put you in the next day.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get that. But I got one or two more questions.
Okay.
You and I working together when the appropriate should be done.
Represent your client.
You got that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Coturo, are you still with us by Zoom? The meeting occurred,
Yes, if we can get that, please.
and I'm wondering if we can, if it's really material, the exact date rather than just its proximity to the November 1st hiring. Is that fair? If he knows whether it was far earlier in the year versus maybe closer, would that obviate the need for the exact date?
If you can't get the exact date, of course, we'll take the best we can get.
Okay, let's start there.
All right.
Let me try this first, Governor Barnes, before you do a deep dive in the email there. Do you recall what time of year it was when this meeting occurred?
I'm afraid not.
Okay.
I mean, you know, the cases and the days moved together. I had a fellow a few years ago that said I represented him in 1978, and I told him I'd take his word for it. I'll have to look. It didn't come up right.
Okay. All right. Well, so sir, is that something?
I'll have to look. It didn't come up right.
Okay. All right. We'll ask this witness to step down, subject to recall, and that might be something the state can present. If that's still the case, then Ms. Cross, did you have another witness available?
Well, having brought over, it's Mr. John Floyd, not the special prosecutor John Floyd. John Floyd.
All right. Ms. Merchant.
It is not with due respect.
Yeah, the state would have an objection to this witness not appearing in person.
Understood. Good. All right. Mr. Ward, I think we're going to need.
Councilors,
All right. Mr. Ward.
councilors, given notice of this doctor's appointment, he missed one yesterday. He took a stand yesterday.
I'm just trying to get more. I mean, we initially been told maybe it was going to be 9:30 and 10. Do we have any better idea to get a realistic expectation of when we think we can have him here?
If it's your honor's
And after he gets those results, have another meeting with them today as well. But potentially that means that those results are going to take, if it's more than an hour or two, I think we would want to start bringing him here, and he can have that follow-up consultation. We want to start bringing him here, and he can have that follow-up consultation later. All right, thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. John Floyd.
Mr. Floyd, if you could have a seat, sir.
May I approach the witness quickly?
Thank you.
Being retired, can you tell the court a little bit about, did you work in the legal career? Were you a lawyer?
I was an attorney. I practiced law. I've probably tried 1,000 cases. About 50% of my practice was criminal law. 25% of it was family law, and the rest was whatever walked through the front door could pay for it.
Okay. And
My calendar shows it is October 26, 2021.
All right. And would defense counsel accept it as a stipulation, or is the
from Atlanta?
No, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I spent most of my legal career.
Washington, D.C.
Correct, but I've tried cases in West Virginia, Maryland, cases in West Virginia, Maryland, Florida. I mean, I was living in Johannesburg, South Africa, and unfortunately, for some reasons, I could not.
Sir, remember about the time period in 2019 when you moved in with your daughter here in Atlanta?
It would have been the spring or summer of 2000. It would have been the spring.
You can just take a look at what's been marked as stages.
Okay, Your Honor, would you, if you don't mind, my eyes are very bad, which is one of the reasons I.
So before we get there, do you recognize State Exhibit 2?
Yes, just my driver's license.
And is State Exhibit 2 a fair and accurate copy of your business? I will mark it as State Exhibit 2A.
perfect?
Now, you talked about when your driver's license was issued. Who lived there?
Well, my daughter lived there. My daughter lived there. I lived there, and from time to time, my grandchildren would come. She was forced to move after she was elected. I don't know if you want me to go through the whole thing, but that, Your Honor, if Your Honor will indulge me, in the N-word and just, it was bizarre. Word and just, it was bizarre. Okay, it just.
Sorry. Pause, sir. Mr. Abadi.
Disbanded, disbanded the group, and it was just. It was just. I hadn't seen anything exact. Stayed there really until 2022, I guess.
And from what you described, did you fear for her safety?
Absolutely. Gonna kill me. They were going to kill my grandchildren. On and on and on. And me. They were going to kill my grandchildren. On and on and on. It just, it became, and I was concerned for her safety.
And after those concerns came to your attention, and after what you heard and saw that day, you remained at the house?
Yes.
And can you tell the court, with what you just described, why did you remain living at the district?
Mr. Abadi.
I believe it's relevant based on a lot of the questions that were asked yesterday of Ms. Willis as to about this. This was elicited from defense counsels yesterday.
Overruled.
Well, these.
Yesterday.
Overruled.
Well, these South Fulton police, first they put a car in the house, and I stayed there to basically take care of the house, to take care of the yard, to take care of that. Also, somebody sprayed, again, the B word, care that. Also, somebody sprayed the house, it's just, and we called the police, and,
Now, at the time that you lived there with Ms. Willis, and I guess even when you remained, so during the time period of 2019 to the end of 2020, are you aware?
When I first got there.
And did you meet her boyfriend?
Yeah, I met him often.
Okay, and did you know him by any specific nickname?
Yeah, Deuce.
Okay, and can you tell the court while you were living there, how often would you see him?
Sometimes every day, sometimes, every other day. He moved out. It was a thing with the keyboard, things that play music and so forth, so on.
Now, when you
play music and so forth, so on.
Now, when you moved in and I know you said you had, And I know you said you hadn't met him until 2023, but when you were living at...
I do remember there was some kind of banter when my daughter was sworn in to be district attorney between me and a couple of guys, and he said he remembers me. Fine, how are you, counsel?
Good, thank you. Just got a couple questions.
Fine, how are you, counsel?
Good, thank you. Just got a couple questions. On Monday, we heard you were in California. Do you have a place in California? Georgia.
Actually, I'm working on a documentary film, and I'm supposed to be being filmed not for this trial, but I'm supposed to be being filmed right now. It was planned.
So do you own property in California?
No, I don't. I live with a friend of mine.
You live with a friend of yours. Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you first move? Well, let me qualify with the dates. Did you spend any time in 2019 in California?
I was just paralyzed. I couldn't go any place. I just couldn't. I couldn't go to the dentist, which I couldn't go to the dentist, which I need to do. Or, it was just a thing. So I was just stuck. I was just stuck there. In 20, but in fact, I knew about it, and I knew what was happening in 19.
Okay, so let's walk through 2019.
I lived in Johannesburg. Well, I lived in Washington, D.C., 2018. I had planned to...
Period from, let's just start with October 2019, okay? We'll call that the relevant period. October 2019. Were you in Georgia every single day of that year?
Absolutely.
So now...
And I didn't go to the movies, which upset me also.
So that entire year, 2020, you remained here in Georgia?
Right.
In 2020... so that entire year, 2020, you were...
As I delved into my family background, I discovered something, and that's what got me to working on the documentary. So I want you to understand what was going on in my life. I pitched my SNCC. It's called the SNCC 5. It's called the SNCC 5. The legendary Peter Fitzsimmons was interested, and so with Peter Fitzsimmons and Leah Smith, we're now doing the documentary. So
I don't want to interrupt.
California in Oakland, if you really want to just be, because Peter is basically San Francisco based, so we're working on the documentary.
Okay.
Is basically San Francisco based, so we're working on the documentary.
Okay. In Washington, D.C., correct?
No, I don't.
You don't own property at 14?
I don't.
You don't own property at 1467 Roxana Road, Northwest?
That's where I used to live.
That's where you used to live. Did you own that property?
Yes.
Okay. And
the property, there was a dispute between me and I had gotten a reverse mortgage company, and there was a dispute between me and that
property.
I didn't. The reverse mortgage company took it.
Oh, okay. So in 2019, when you said that you met Mr. Wade, that you remember you met in 2023, right? That was the first time you remember? Okay. And I wasn't really clear. You said something about meeting him. Was it with Mr. Isikoff, or did Mr. Isikoff tell you?
No, I was being interviewed by Mr. Isikoff.
Okay.
And he walked in, and I met him. That was the first time. He walked into the office, and
where we walked into that interview?
Yes.
And so Ms. Willis had not told you about Mr. Wade prior to that?
Absolutely not.
So she didn't tell you anything about their relationship before you met him that day?
No.
But Mr. Wade remembers meeting you in 2020?
He said that at my daughter's swearing in. I do remember that we having some banner about fraternities, but
okay.
Right.
That's all I have. Just one moment, George. Nothing else. Thank you.
But is the address on that driver's license the home that you're referring to as your daughter's in South Fulton?
Absolutely.
Okay. It was unclear to me, maybe no one else, it was unclear to me, maybe no one else, but it's unclear to me, when did you stop living at what I would call your daughter's home in South Fulton?
Against me, that the house became basically uninhabitable. You know, I got tired of sleeping in one room one day and no one that. I would say December.
When was she sworn in as district attorney?
On January 1, 2021.
Okay. And did you indicate that there was an incident, and I know you've described it, was that incident on February the 3rd, 2021?
That's my best recollection.
Okay. So my question then is, after February 3rd of 2021, how much longer did Miss Willis stay at the house before she moved somewhere else?
Very short period of time, and I cannot be precise, but I would bet all the money I ever made, it wasn't more than a month and a half, if that long.
Okay, so we're talking about, best of your recollection, end of February into the beginning of March, give or take, of 2021, when Miss Willis would have moved to a different location.
Exactly.
Okay. And did Miss Willis return to the house, that is, the house that you were in, at any point in time that you can remember?
From time to time, she and her security might show up for her to pick something up or take something or something, but she always would come with her security.
Okay. My question was poorly worded. I apologize. Did she come back permanently to her house?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay,
absolutely not.
So as far as you're aware, that once Miss Willis left the house, her house, South Fulton House, so the record's clear, in either late February or into March of 2021, best of your recollection, she's not returned to that home to live.
No, it became uninhabitable. I mean, it just, you know, I mean, I would have to walk around that house looking out of every window. I made a habit of having to walk around the whole house. I got lights so that if somebody would come at night in the back, so that those kinds of reflecting lights, I had those put up.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
All I was interested in is whether she had ever returned.
No, the answer is no.
Okay. Now, when Miss Willis, when your daughter left the home, time period, end of February, beginning of March, give or take, 2021, do you know where she moved to?
No, and I didn't want to know. I intentionally did not want to know, because I was not, if somebody stuck a gun to my head and I could tell them, I wasn't going to tell them anyway, or I'd have made up something, but I didn't want to know.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that if you didn't want to know, you never visited her at the place that she moved to?
Oh, I never did.
Never did?
Never did.
Okay. Do you know how long she stayed at the first place that she went to after she left her house before she moved to a second place?
What I know, and this is hearsay, counsel, is that my daughter has had to move something like 4 times.
But do you know any potential?
No, I don't know any place. I was taken one time for Christmas Day. I've only seen my daughter, and this is very hard for me to say, but during the period my daughter left, I've only seen my daughter 13 times, because I can't, and we've never seen each other more than maybe 3 hours because of, the nightmare threats against her and me.
And I understand that, and from the perspective of being a father myself, I understand what that means. So I'm going to move away from that. I was just trying to get an idea of date-wise, okay? So let me try to get one more date. In 2023, when you were being interviewed by one of the gentlemen that wrote the book at the DA's office, and Mr. Wade came in, can you give us, other than 2023, what the date would be?
I'm sorry, I can't, counsel.
How about spring, summer, any idea?
I would guess spring or summer, but I can't. Okay. I don't. I'm sorry.
And you've already indicated, at least to your recollection, that was the first time that you'd met Mr. Wade.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I'm not arguing with you about that. I want to go to Miss Willis's boyfriend that you referenced. Okay. You met Miss Willis's boyfriend, as you've characterized it, when you came here in 2019.
Correct.
And you met him on one occasion, several occasions?
Oh, no, I saw him often.
Oh, so you mean there was no secret that she was dating this man?
Not from me.
Not from you.
And not, he was a disc jockey of some kind. I think he had a government job during the day. I don't know what it was, but apparently he would do weddings and so forth and so on. He was a disc jockey, play music. So he had all his stuff was always in the way, and I was always having to try to push it aside. And anyway.
But Ms. Willis, your daughter didn't keep him from you, correct?
No.
No, I mean, there was no doubt he...
I mean, my daughter and I lived in the same house. I mean, he came and went,
Right. Now, when did you learn that your daughter had a romantic, personal relationship with Mr. Wade?
Well, about 7 weeks ago when as a matter of fact, I just found out when other folks found out. Okay.
That is, your daughter, as I understand it, never told you one time in the year of 2022 that she was dating Mr. Wade, correct?
That's correct.
And until recently, you didn't know from anyone, including your daughter, that she dated Mr. Wade, correct?
That's correct.
That is, whatever the relationship is between father and daughter, she kept that a secret from you, correct?
Correct.
That's all I need to know.
Mr. Stockton.
No.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Correct.
Good morning, Counsel.
When your daughter moved or left the house that she owned, did she say anything to you about having a large savings of cash?
Oh, no, no. See, maybe, excuse me, and Your Honor, I'm not trying to be racist, okay? But it's a black thing, okay? I was trained, and most black folks, they hide cash or they keep cash. And I trained, you always keep some cash because I've been places, and just because of the color of my skin, for example, I took a fellowship at Harvard when my daughter was just, if I might, Your Honor, when I was just, she was just, maybe 3 years old. And I remember going to a restaurant in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I had a American Express credit card and maybe a Visa or whatever. And I had a lot of what they call traveler's checks. I don't even know if they still have traveler's checks, but traveler's checks. And there was a sign said, with the credit card, for whatever reasons, the man would not take my American Express credit card. So I pulled out my Visa card, and he wouldn't take my Visa card. So then I pulled out my traveler's checks. He said, we don't take checks. Now, these were traveler's checks. This was money. I had a $10 bill. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And he said, the bill for my wife at the time, Fani's mother, Fani, and myself was like $9.95, and I had a $10 bill. That was all that. I always remember that. But even before that, I've always kept cash, and I've told my daughter, you keep 6 months worth of cash always. For example, I had 3 safes in my house. I put some of my clients' stuff there too, things I didn't want other lawyers to be, because you're always in a firm, and I knew that there were special conditions, so some of my clients' things I would bring home, put them in the safe. But I've always kept safes. And as a matter of fact, I gave my daughter her first cash box and told her always keep some cash.
So is that a yes?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's all I got, Judge.
Mr. Durham.
No questions.
Mr. McDougald.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Gillen.
It's still morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Counsel. How are you?
Just fine. Just a few questions following up. When you were talking about when you learned about Mr. Wade and your daughter, correct?
Correct.
Now, did your daughter tell you in around October of 2022 that she had gone on a Caribbean cruise with Mr. Wade to the Bahamas?
The answer is I knew that my daughter had gone, but I did not know who she went with or what the circumstances were. So I knew that she had gone out of town, but I didn't know with whom.
I see. And did she tell you in November of 2022 that she had gone to Aruba and stayed at a Hyatt Regency resort there in Aruba for 3 days with Mr. Wade? Did she tell you that?
The answer was, again, I knew she went out of town. I didn't even know where she went. I knew she was going out of town. She told me she was going out of town. I think she might have said she was going out of the country or something. She'd be gone. But other than that, that was all.
Okay. And did she tell you in March of 2023 that she was going to Belize for several days with Mr. Wade?
The same answer, that I knew she would tell me she was going out of town, and she may or may not have told me where she was going, but she'd be gone for a couple of days.
Okay. Now, in 2023, you were in many days you would be out in California, correct?
Some days I'd be in California, correct.
Okay. Well, did she tell you in May of 2023 that she was traveling to Napa Valley with Mr. Wade, so maybe y'all could see each other when she visited California with Mr. Wade?
The answer is no.
And so the first time that you ever met Mr. Wade or learned about Mr. Wade, to your recollection, was in 2023?
That's correct.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Kucherov, on Zoom.
Yes, Ron, just a couple quick questions. Good morning, sir. I know I can't see you.
I can't see you either, but
We can take a moment.
good morning, counsel.
We can take a moment. Let's just pause, see if we can change the screens to show Mr. Kucherov. Sorry. We need
Your Honor, I'm on a phone, so it's kind of difficult.
Can you turn your screen on, though?
I'm trying to. Does that work?
Just hold one more moment. All right, there we go. You can proceed, Mr. Kucherov.
Sir, you seem to know about the issue of cash in this transaction. You said it was a black thing. How did you know that the cash was going to be an issue in this testimony?
Because I was asked for it, and I was prepped by the lawyers, and they asked me about it. What else?
And did you speak with Mr. Wade about your testimony?
No.
Did you speak with your daughter about your testimony?
She may have been present when the lawyers were. I really don't remember.
If Mr. Wade and your daughter were dating, you wouldn't have known that unless your daughter told you.
What do you? Maybe I'm not understanding your question, counsel. So maybe you want to restate. What is it that you're asking me?
Yeah, if it wasn't clear, I can re-ask the question. I'll rephrase it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Mr. Wade. If Mr. Wade and your daughter were dating, you wouldn't have known that unless your daughter told you.
I did not know that they were dating. And when were you talking about the cash? I didn't know that. I don't know what you're asking me. What I told my child from the time she was a child is always have some money. Always have some money. If you go on a date so that people don't try to stick you and you want to leave whoever, always keep some cash, okay?
Mr. Floyd, you answered the question that the attorneys prepped you for that, so that's all I wanted to know.
Anything else, Mr. Kucherov?
That's it, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Cromwell.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Abadi?
Your Honor. Mr. Floyd, now, it wasn't common for your daughter to confide in you about her romantic life at all.
No, and I haven't confided in her about mine before when I had one, okay?
Hate him.
And you wouldn't have known about her boyfriend, the disc jockey.
Hey, Debs.
Is that an objection?
I think that might have just been still off mute.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Now, you wouldn't have known about her boyfriend, the disc jockey, had you not been living with her, correct?
That's correct.
I'll overruled?
I have nothing further.
Did he answer the question?
He said that's correct.
All right, by show of hands, any redirect on those points only? Ms. Merchant?
Yes. I just want to know when you were prepped by the lawyers, when this prep session was.
I just got off the plane on, what was it, Tuesday night? I think I was probably drooling at the mouth. I was so tired. So it must have been, I got in Wednesday. It must have been Wednesday.
Okay. And did you talk about any of the testimony from yesterday or watch any news reports or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. You can't cut the TV on without seeing this. The first thing, and I listen to conservative radio a lot, and, you know, last night for 5 hours, all they talked about was this case.
So you were aware of what the testimony your daughter gave yesterday was?
Yeah, unless you don't cut the radio on, unless you don't cut the television on, unless you don't read the AJC or any other, the New York Times or whatever, which I do every day, yeah, of course.
So is it fair to say nobody instructed you that you were under the rule of sequestration?
Right, and I'm not under subpoena either.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Mr. Floyd.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. It's a pleasure to appear in front of Your Honor.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cross, let me check in. Was the state planning to call additional witnesses?
Not at this time, Your Honor. We're again trying to accommodate if there's a
Sure.
lapse in schedule to be able to this afternoon, but right now that was the last witness.
Okay, so even if Mr. Bradley testifies to some extent, it's still the potential that the state has no further witnesses?
I anticipate at least one more will be available this afternoon, but that would be it.
Okay, so there are potentially more state's witnesses. All right.
Judge, before we move on, I'd move to strike the last witness's testimony by violation of the law.
All right, so I think the rule is invoked and the instruction was for the parties to tell all witnesses subpoenaed or expected to appear about the rule. I don't think the remedy is necessarily striking. I think it can go also to this credibility as well. So to that extent, unless Ms. Cross, you want something else to be heard on that, point is made. All right. Do we have an update for Mr. Bradley?
Yes, Your Honor. Yeah, he should be here at 12:25.
Okay. Then what I think we should do is have these preliminary conversations about privilege, see if we can make any headway, and then take our afternoon break. So to that end, counselors, I don't know if you just want to argue in place there or go to the table, whatever makes you comfortable. But Mr. Chopra, I think maybe it was relayed to you since you weren't in the court earlier this morning. We'd had some initial conversations about the distinction between the privilege and Rule 1.6, and it sounded like you wanted to be heard on that.
Your Honor, it was brought to my attention, and I apologize because I don't have things.
What do you need?
Well, a copy of the case in front of me would be helpful, but it's not necessary. It would just take me a second to keep looking at my phone and respond to the court.
Whatever you need to do.
Your Honor, I believe the case before in anticipation of piercing the rule 1.6 is on Corning fiberglass versus American Centennial. Is that correct?
Pardon, Your Honor. It's difficult hearing counsel. Could you
There's a microphone there at the jury box. You can try to
hear what he's saying? Thank you.
either try to lift that microphone up and speak in the jury box or make your way over to the podium or table. Sorry.
Is that any better?
All right, and no, that was authority provided by Mr. Sadow over our morning recess, and I think that was indicated to go more towards a potential crime fraud argument. I don't think we've really gotten there yet.
It's not crime fraud per se. It's the same notion. It's fraud on the court, different proposition.
Okay.
But yes, as to attorney-client privilege waiver,
Right.
1.6 confidential and secret.
The case that I had cited to this morning showing the distinction between the two was tenant health care. So that's where we were on the threshold issue. Did you have something that you wanted to address on that?
I have not been able to review that, Your Honor. I was unfortunately.
All right, Mr. Ward, your co-counsel with Mr. Bradley?
I'm not here in that capacity.
Remind me why you are here.
I'm here in this case assisting. You just assisting. Bradley.
Okay, so you are co-counsel on this.
Well, this morning when you were asking where he was, I had to make sure everybody knew there was no one here. That's what I was doing this morning.
Okay.
Oh, this is, the judge is saying it's 10.
Right, and the citation for that is 273 Georgia 206.
Judge,
And I'll give you time to review that. In the meantime, what other things did you want me to know? And perhaps at this point we just take our break now, unless you also want to talk about the questionings that were provided by Ms. Merchant, seeing if there's anything we can achieve.
so that I can be clear, it is apparent that at this point we're going to go into whether or not 1.6 provides privilege for Mr. Wade, even though he has specifically stated that he does not waive that privilege. Therefore, it would be incumbent upon the court to issue an order to demand that Mr. Bradley, over and above the privilege afforded in 1.6, is required to testify. Is that correct?
That's right. That's what we covered this morning.
And so I would ask the court, is the court then going to travel under the fraud exception?
We haven't quite gotten there. We haven't decided whether attorney-client privilege applies. I think there are some other things that we would have to do to, I think we got held up yesterday on 1.6. As I understood it, I was waiting to hear from you whether we are now beyond that. And then if we're in the land of attorney-client privilege and only attorney-client privilege, so Rule 505, then I think Mr. Sadal has some arguments on crime fraud, and I think there's also just the general arguments of, does it exist? Were certain statements in furtherance? Does Mr. Bradley have any knowledge independent of those?
Certainly,
Right.
and in order to keep the court abreast, yes, we are still traveling under, there should be a privilege afforded to Mr. Wade under 1.6, and we are aware of how they will try to convince the court that that should be overcome. So hopefully I can read this case in less than 5 minutes.
All right, that's fine. Anything, I guess, as he reads that, let's do this. Assuming we do get beyond 1.6, if you can work with me here, anything we want to add to that?
I'm afraid I would have to hear what the arguments were that got us past 1.6.
Okay.
Judge, I'm not here to insinuate to the court that we would do something else. I don't
Okay.
know.
But there was a line of questioning that Ms. Merchant decided to write out and share with the parties. Were there any initial thoughts, comments, reactions to that? Again, just trying to make sure we make the best use of Mr. Bradley's time once he arrives.
Your Honor, I just want to say that might just reiterate that my client is not waived the attorney-client privilege. The questions that we reviewed this morning, Mr. Bradley is not able to testify about anything relating to Wade's marriage or dating history after December 2018. That's going to be the operative date. Nor does any of the questions does Mr. Bradley cite to any external knowledge or sources. Anything he will say would be derived entirely from privileged communication with our client, so we just want to renew our objection.
Okay. So certainly the assertion of the privilege is confirmed and for the record. And I think, again, this is where we got held up yesterday, is that I know you're asserting that certain answers to these questions would be covered by privilege. I think there's still some boxes we would need to check before we can confirm that. And we'd have to check those boxes with Mr. Bradley before we can get there. Okay. If there's nothing else, then let's break until 1 o'clock. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.